Morning all. Well, today is actually a day I'm starting to do something positive, actually putting something back in the boat. Well, to start off with, what I'm going to do is where that compound is missing, I'm going to fill that up, fill that end up, and then I'll put 2 layers of glass over the top to seal it in. The same on that side where the plywood was, fill that little hole up and that little hole up, and then glass that in. And where I left them lips, so I grind it away, they're now loose. So I'm just going to put a little bit of, make up some paste and put in there. And that one, just to tie that in again. And this one's obviously loose, so I'm going to do it to that too. Just to give us a date image around the boat for when we put the Needleplast sheets on. Right, you ain't got to do it, but it do help having them lips there. Why make life hard for yourself when you don't have to? Well, that's simple enough. I'll just put some acetone in a bucket with a paintbrush. So just to liven up that glass, I'll just go over the area with a little bit of acetone. Just to freshen the glass up. Don't be tight with it. Ain't a lot of money. Just give that a quick splash over, and then along these edges I'll do it some more. You see where that lip's free, just give a little bit in there. Just to liven that edge up. One more to do. Go in there, that's delaminated a bit. Just liven that edge up also. I've got 2 more to do actually. There's that one there on the corner. This one's sound, that's all sound along there, so that's good. Now the only one more to do, I just got to freshen up to start with, is along the other side. You see, like, that's all missing. This is just to reactivate the glass, really. Get it well in there. The solvent basically break down the edges of the fiberglass and get that ready to take some more glass on it. Sort of soften the edges. That partially break down the glass. But I'm just putting a bit on there, so it's all nicely coated. So that should be all sorted then. Well, as that section in tied in at the end, that was flapping around until I put the paste back on it. That's going to still flap around, so I just got a bit of wood and a couple of G clamps, so I then clamped it in position, so when I put a bit of paste on it, that's going to hold it in position. There's no point having it flapping around. As soon as you touch it, it's going to move, so that'll just be hard work. As we've got these screws from the bilge keel protruding, I don't want to fill them up with paste, fiberglass, these little chopped strands, because in theory I'll bond them in, I'll glue them in and you'll never get them out again. Same on this side. So what we're going to do, we're going to squirt a bit of silicone on each screw head, let that go off, and then fill it up. So obviously you'll be able to undo the screw out of silicone and you won't be able to undo the screw out of resin. That's the theory anyway. I don't know if I'm always going to plan. Oh, just smeared a bit of silicone sealant on all them screws. So that'll set. We'll put the paste around it and that wouldn't stick to the screws and bond them in forever. It's got to be worth doing, it make life easier in the long run. Well, I just mixed up some filler to fill them gaps up. All it was standard resin, using the old catalyst dispenser and some 6mm choppies, so just fine filaments. And used my mother's scales, of course, but we did cover it in a plastic bag so we can get resin on it so she don't kill us. But I didn't go too badly, like you can see in here. That's now starting to kick. I don't you see the strands very well. We mixed up 2%. Obviously there's 350ml resin in here, so I done 7ml of catalyst. But all you do is you mix the chopped strands in the resin before you add the catalyst. I mean after you add the catalyst. Add the catalyst first, then mix the chopped strands in a little bit at a time, and that start like gluing together. I half filled that one because I didn't want to fill it right up because it gets so hot. Because obviously give off a lot of exothermic reaction, that give off a lot of heat. I half filled that one. I totally filled that little chunk up and that little chunk up, and then I went around these edges just using a spatula because you got the beveled edge. So I just smeared it on a little bit at a time, then run the spatula along it to make it smooth. So that one's now tied in, that one's now tied in, that one's tied in, and so's that one. That's been held with that clamp, so once that kick off, that'll be all good to go. It's just nice to have something positive and move in a positive direction. I'm happy with that. Them choppies are a little bit different to the stuff I'd used before, and they mix slightly differently, but let's get in there. Well, that's been about half an hour since I finished pouring it in, and that's gone rock hard now, but if you feel it, that's very warm. That's why I've only put probably about a third full. That's about 1.5 inches deep in total. If I'd have laid that all in one go, then it got ever so hot, like really hot. That is quite toasty at the minute, and so's that one. But if I'd have got exothermic reaction, if I'd have put too much in it, they got hot and probably caused a bit of an issue. So that's why I only laid a third at a time. But it's set up lovely, and all this is gone. That's nice and solid now. That's just to flex the actual glass. That's lovely and solid, so that was worth doing. I'll then be able to take that clamp off, and that'll all be nice and solid and held in position. If you look at the starboard bilge, I filled them right up. As you can see, you can see it, they're now about 1/4 inch down. So when you put sort of lumps of resin in, they do shrink a bit. So I'll now mix up a little bit more resin with some choppies and totally fill them off. Well, the port side, you see the choppies and the resin all cured, and there too. And I put a little blob on the end there with a bit of silicone where another screw comes through. That's all hidden. The port side, that's still only 2/3 full, and that's rather hot, so I don't dare pour any yet. I'll fill up that side, that end's full. So now what I'm going to do is put 2 layers of 450g mat over it, and just to secure all that hard foaming. That's about only 2 meters long. I'm going to do one piece 7 inches wide, then another piece overlapping at 10 inches wide, and glass over the lot to hold all that resin in place. I don't know, you see some of it along here, that doesn't look that secure in there, but all the resin will run down in that and secure it all. And obviously the glass on top, what it was originally, let's see there, that last section was left. That was to hold all that in place, so I'll put it back to how it was. Well, it's about 10 minutes before I start laying up. So I'm going to give it another rub down with acetone with a cloth this time. just to give it a good coater. Plenty on there, just to get that to get rid of any muck. There isn't much muck coming off it, but just give it a one last wipe. The better you can key it, the better that will stick. And you think that is 20-year-old glass under here, or 30-year-old glass, so you can feel it start going a bit sticky already. So give it a good rub down. A little tiny bit of muck on the glass, what look like muck, but at the end of the day, how far do you go? How far do you rub it down? You can keep grinding for days. I don't know how thick this hull is, so there's only so much water grind off, isn't there? There really is. I don't want to start grinding away the original hull too much. This really ain't structural work on this bilge. That's just tidying it up and holding everything in. Well, I'll be mixing the resin up in these 2.5 kilo buckets. Handy size, that's all you need. I'm just weighing it first to see how much is there. You probably can't see it on the scales. That's about 95 grams, so I've got to allow for that when I mix the resin. Well, that amount of mat there, we'll wet it out first, wet out the floor, all the floor, and line it up. I didn't think that wouldn't even be a metre, so I'll probably mix up about 600 grams of resin. That should be enough to do that, I imagine. Easy. Well, I roughly think doing this, I'll use about 500 grams of resin to fill them up. So I've got 500 in that tub, and I've got 250 in that tub just in case. So when it starts going off, I need to get out there. So I mix the 500 up first, then I can use 250 if I get caught short. Well, that's all done now, you see. That's all glassed. You can see through it. In fact, you'll be able to read the daily paper through it. Obviously, in that centre section there, where that old foam is, there's a little tiny bit of air around the edges. Because it's up and down like a yo-yo, there ain't much you can do about it. But like that bit there, that's the old glass underneath. And there's a cut, that's why I put that filler in, but that bit there is the old glass underneath, and so's that. So that proves there's less air in my glass than what there is in the original stuff. What I've done, I got one, because the mat coming 1 metre wide, so we cut this because it doesn't matter. I didn't tear it on the floor, I cut it. Obviously one side of the mat reel is torn and the other one's cut. So I put the cut edge that way, laid 1 metre to roughly the middle here, so the torn edge was there, and I married up the tore edge, the other metre, and put it that way, because obviously 2 metres wide. After I rolled that out, rolled and consolidated it, I then put the 10-inch wide bit on top, and then put the torn bit in the middle. So the torn edges, like you see there, there's 4 layers of mat just in them edges, well, like the torn bits sort of interweaved. There's 4 layers there. Obviously the rest has only got 2. But I'm happy with that. Let's show you how there's still how stained the hull is underneath. That makes it look worse, doesn't it, when it's wet? But it ain't actually that bad when it dry out. Well, that's that side done. Now I just got to finish off filling that up. That end's done, and then underneath the centre of the boat I grind it out, and you can see the top of the orange foam. I just got to do that too now. Well, I'm now going back to the stern of the boat. I was thinking yesterday's video, you can see where them 2 nuts worth of the bit of wood, I ground that out. Well, as you see, I put the roller in the bucket of acetone to keep it soft. And I'm just giving that a little brush of acetone to bring that glass back a bit. See See that orange horrible foam? Just coat with that acetone. I'll give it 5 minutes, and then I'll fill that with the chopped strands, and then I'll finally fill that last little bit on this side, on the port bilge. Then we can glass over that side too. That's all evaporated now, and you can feel how sticky. So I weighed out another 350 grams of resin, 2% inclusion. It's 7mm, so I got that. Pour it in and start giving it a good stir. That's like a pinky colour at the minute. And as soon as that started getting mixed in well, that darken up and go to a nice brown colour. See, look, give it a good stir. That's going brown already. Well, I got some 6mm choppies. I'll mix some of them in. These act slightly different to what I normally buy. Normally, when you add these little chopped strands in, they normally sort of like disintegrate like all resin wick in like a wick of a candle. But these ain't. These are staying pretty whole. It's a different type of choppy. They still work. The only difference is they don't break down like conventional ones. Normally, like, you put them in, and they, as soon as they pull the resin in, they go like porridge. That sort of like break the little bits down. But these ain't. The only positive thing I found is when you spread it out, that doesn't seem to drag so far when you're spreading it, because obviously the strands isn't so long. They don't drag along your work, so it's neater. You seem to have to use a lot more of them. I don't know if you can see them on here. They're like actually solid, not like CSM wick material, like chopped strand mat. That's sort of like that little wicks, but this is like solid little particles. But that seemed to work alright. Because I'll never be able to lay in here properly. That'll just be with chopped strand mat. That just wouldn't be a very good option. I'm better off using resin and choppies. A few more in. Seem to use a lot more of these than the other type. What's more like chopped strand mat. That is what it is, isn't it? Can't worry about it. It's starting to break down a little bit now. There we go. So a little bit more. That should be enough for a long shot. See, they're now starting to break down slightly, so they're getting there. Three more. And now it's like a filler paste. So we'll get that and push this in here all the way along. Just got to level out a bit. It's not hard to do. And obviously we end what's rounded. I'll soon do it. You've got to bevel up the side like it has done. All I want to do was just seal that foam off, that hard crusty foam. I don't know what it was. Some sort of hard resin filler from yesteryear. I'll just put another little bit there, just to fill up whatever that mark was. And basically that's the easy way to fill things up where you know you'll struggle to get chopped strand matting because it wouldn't bend to the radius. Look, that all look pretty good. It's all got the strands to give it strength, and that filled in lovely. So that's now sealed from water. The last bit we've got to do is the bit in the port side bilge. This is about the third top up. I don't like putting too much in because that do generate a lot of heat at once. But this will take all of this. But we just want to consolidate that foam. It's just brittle and we don't want that to break up anymore. So it's just, you see where it's cracked, where there's had screws put in for the bilge keels, and we don't know what the integrity is like on the rest of the foam. So if we just seal it up and fix it all back in, trying to give a bit more integrity, we should be okay. Well, I know we will. We've got enough, that'll be fine. Obviously the angle of the boat and the bilges on the side, I want to run this way, so just got to push it back a little bit. But that's all going to be covered up with glass, so it ain't got to be pretty as a picture, is it? A little tiny bit more in that corner. That's enough. So now that's all done. Just let that dry off. Sorted. Well, I'm now going to lay up this side. I've weighed 2 buckets. I know I need about 750 grams. So I've got 1 bucket with 500 grams in it, and 1 bucket with 250. So I'll lay this first. When I get down, I can then start laying this. Give me a little longer pot life. So I'll do 500 grams. Got 500 grams first, and then I've got another 250. Extend the pot life. So at 2%, that is in 10 mil. You see on there, 10 mil. These little measuring dispensers are great. So I'll get the 10 mil and I'll pour it in. Just 2% inclusion. give that a good stir. If you look around here, it's all like wet and sticky. That's where I've already put the acetone down about 10 minutes ago to liven the edges. So as you see, I started to go brown already. Lovely that. This must be a big supplier, so go and get through a lot. So then get the roller. Start wetting it out. I always wet out first. Wet out with plenty of resin. It's not that expensive. Just get it wet out all over. Then I'll get the 7-inch wide stuff and lay that down. You see, that's the torn edge on the inside. And then I'll get the other torn edge, marry it up. Ooh, a bit close. So the two torn edges are married up, so then they'll roll together. This is just prep work, just to consolidate all that hard foam stuff and get the deck nice and ready to lay on. Just roll a little bit out all over first, just to get it starting to wet down. Start getting wet, and then start breaking down the fibres, the chop strand mat. These strands of glass are held together with an emulsion, whilst broken down by the styrene in the resin. This is good quality resin. This is Lloyd's approved low styrene resin. It's good quality stuff. So you can't beat Lloyd's approved resins. Some of them cheapy old resins you get, mixtures of bits and pieces and junk really. See, that's now wetted. I'll then start breaking down the fibres. See, it's now starting to go clear. The more you roll it, the more you're pushing the air out. I know a lot of people like them old metal consolidating rollers, but I've never been a great lover of them, to be honest. I know you use, some people prefer to wet out the cloth beforehand and then lay it down, but everyone will find their own particular way they like, and nothing's written in stone. You've got to stick to what you're happy with, what you find easier. See, I'm never going to get all the air out of what that lumpy bumpy old resin is. That's just an impossibility. That's like trying to roll fiberglass with the Himalayas. That ain't going to happen. You'll never get rid of it all. It's impossible. It's now starting to go opaque. I'm just trying to push it into that lumpy bumpy foam as best I can really. I'll never be perfect over that unless I skimmed over the whole lot with some resin. Got anything to do that. This is just to keep all the crusty old foam together and try and tidy it up before we lay across it. That's better to lay across some foam, some resin and mat, what's a known, instead of some crusty old orange hard stuff or you ain't got a clue what it is. And now I'm going to go over the top again with some wider stuff. Stick that there. So you overlap them very bit. Oh, got too far one way. There we go. Good and push it down. Something like that. Bring them edges together. Obviously the planks don't run 100% true. Just roll it in first, then you'll stick it into the, draw the resin out from below. Everyone likes to lay resin slightly different to each other. Some might prefer it one way, some might say I'm doing it wrong as I'm doing it here because I'm not using the consolidating roller and all this other tripe. But opinions like bommels, everyone's got them. Do it your own way and how you find out you're doing it. Who cares what someone else thinks? As long as you're happy you're doing a good job, that's all that matters. We'll basically come to the end of this resin. Go on now, mix up the other batch. Another 250 grams. Just mix this up quickly. Give me a slightly longer pot life when you do it in twos. See, that's now gone brown. And brown colour, so that's start to kick. I've got to admit, this resin I got off GRP UK Limited. That mix and kick off lovely. That's some of the best resins I've ever used. I don't know if that's because they're a bigger supplier, because I normally use a local supplier. Because they're a big supplier, do they turn over their resin so often? That's really fresh. But you don't seem to have to mix it up hardly at all before that change colour and start kicking off. That's good old stuff. I've been impressed with it. Sometimes you've got to stir it for several minutes, but this start mixing and colouring straight away. Trying to concentrate on them bits what are still white before the emulsion is broken down. See that there? There's a few white bits. Well, I ain't got enough resin in to break the emulsion down in the chopped strand mat. So I just wet them down and just get that start to go. Big bit here. basically I use this roller to consolidate as well as put the resin on. As you're rolling it, you're pushing the air out, and you know you're pushing the air out because that going transparent, and the more you roll it, it gets more transparent and more transparent. Will basically mean you are consolidating the mat, pushing all the air out and compacting the resin. Just take a little bit of time just to get all the air out. A bit more of this end. You see now it's getting clearer and clearer as I go. Be careful you roll that way, you'll lift it up out of the centre. That's starting to get there now. Put a bit more resin down in places. As the boat's been ground out, the hull ain't perfectly flat anyway, so you get the odd little peak and trough where you've been over a grinder. So you can't get every single bit of air out, that's impossible. People who say they get every single air bubble out, well, that ain't quite true. You get a few tiny little pinhole ones in it, and there's nothing you can do about it very easily. So don't worry about it too much. I say if you can see through it all over the whole thing, that's pretty good. tiny bit more. Gotta be careful, or when you pull it down, you'll lift it up out of the trough in the middle. So you got to be a bit careful. Once emulsion's broke down in the mat, you can then pull it apart really easy. So you'll be a little bit delicate. It's now starting to kick off now, I can feel it. The answer is knowing when to stop. You've got to know when to stop. And I think that's now. Just quickly run over the edges. There's no drips, high spots. And that's done. I'm happy with that. Look, it can't be that bad. Look, that black line there is where the old man marked the 7-inch bit underneath. So you can see like the 7-inch bit under the 10-inch bit. So that's pretty see-through. That's clear. That white bit there is just a bit of glass left on top of the old foam, but there isn't too much wrong with that, is there? That looked pretty good to me. Well, the last thing to do, take the roll off the frame, stick it in a bucket, add a bit of acetone, sit it on the skew. I've got a consolidating roller there, but sit it on the skew if, put the lid on so the acetone doesn't evaporate, put it at the angle so it's sitting at, and that'll be good for the next day. Well, that's me. As it's a Friday night, that's me done for the day. So I haven't done a huge amount, but we've got a nice bit done. We sealed up that orange foam what was in the keel of the boat. We got close to it, that's all sealed. We then backfilled all the missing bits of orange foam, cleaned it all down and give it 2 coats of 450 chop strand mat. We also done this side as well. That's looking nice at the minute. That's all laid up and dry. And then we also use some more choppies and resin just to secure them bits of edges of the deck back together, and also secure that in place. Obviously that'd come away, but we can now let that go. And the other side to hold it. There we go. It's all lovely and strong. That ain't going anywhere. Clamps off, all done. Well, that's all it then. There's old Henry Hoover. He's handy. That's all done for the day. Hope you enjoyed watching, and tomorrow we'll be cutting the foam for the rest of the boat. We're cutting the foam for the stringers. We've got to add a couple of stringers in here. Obviously string it in on every rib in between, so tomorrow will be the stringers. Alright then, hope you enjoyed watching. Catch you later. Bye.